And with the sound of jingle bells, you know what it's going to be about. It's Christmas time. It's the end of the year. And you know what? Let's just have a bit of fun with science at the same time.
You're listening to the Physics Ed Podcast. For hundreds of ideas, free experiments and more, go to fizzics-education.com.au. And now, here's your host, Ben Newsome.
Yes, welcome again to another Physics Ed podcast. If it's your first time, hey, welcome. Love to have you on board. And those people have been around for a little while. You know, I've been interviewing many science educators right across the country and beyond who really love their science experiments and sharing them as much as possible. And I thought, you know what? Why not do it these holidays, especially seeing that school's starting to wrap up and it's time for a bit of Christmas. So what that means is that we've got a number of experiments that you can get from your supermarket. You can get the materials really easily, and there's lots to do. Some are very quick, and some will take a little bit of time to grow, and you'll see what I mean when we talk about that soon enough. You really are going to have a bit of fun with this. So we're doing everything from Christmas fizzy bombs, we're going to do some stuff with sugar, we're going to make edible snow, coloured shadows, lemon juice, Christmas cards, all sorts of stuff. We might even make some snowflakes. It's going to be fun, and I hope you have a bit of fun with this. I certainly am looking forward to it.
This is the Physics Ed Podcast.
Yes, we really do. We've got a whole bunch of experiments to do on this podcast, and it's just going to be a bit of fun. You just have to have your shopping list ready to go get the materials. So, number one, we're going to make crystal snowflakes with borax. Now, first up, you're going to need some hot water, and what that means is that you're going to need some adult help. And speaking of adult help, you are going to be using some borax. So, when you're using borax, please have gloves, because it's not a bad idea considering it's just a mild insecticide, and we don't really need to be touching that stuff. Obviously, wash your hands first. So, straight up, we need 2 cups of water. So, here goes your shopping list. 2 cups of water, 4 teaspoons of borax, and you can find borax in your supermarket or in the hardware store. Just ask someone who might be able to point you in the right direction. You definitely can find it. You'll need about 10 centimeters of string. Any old string will do. And 2 cups. You'll need a popsicle stick or something that you can just hang the snowflake that you're going to make out yourself. And you also want to have some pipe cleaners and some scissors to cut them up. And you just need a bit of patience. It's going to take a couple of days to grow. So now we've done our list with the materials that you need. Here are some instructions that you need. And by the way, you can always check this on the Physics Ed website. Just type in borax crystals in the Physics Ed website. You will find it for sure. Number 1 instruction, twist the pipe cleaners into a snowflake shape. So basically, you just twist them up. It's pretty easy. It doesn't have to get too fancy, and though admittedly some kids are going to get fancy. You could make a Christmas tree if you like, or some other shape that represents Christmas. Why not? You might want to use the scissors to trim the shape back a little bit, just so they can fit into the cup later. So you might want to do a bit of a test to make sure there's adequate room, not only for the actual snowflake that you're going to make, but also so the crystals can grow. Now, number 2, get that 10 centimeter bit of string and tie it onto your pipe cleaner snowflake. Pretty straightforward. Number 3, what you're going to do is you're going to tie that string onto your popsicle stick or a spoon or something that you're going to be able to balance well across the top of your cup so that the snowflake just dangles down into the cup. Now, again, with adult help, because we don't need anyone burning themselves, you're going to add 250 milliliters of hot water into that cup, and you're going to stir in a bit of borax, the 4 teaspoons of borax powder into that water so it completely dissolves. And really make sure you got adult help, and make sure you got gloves on as well. Now, you've got your cup, you've got it all mixed up with your borax and your hot water, and it's all ready to go. What you need to do now is dangle that pipe cleaner snowflake into the borax solution, making sure the pipe cleaners don't touch the sides or the bottom of the cup. Now, you may want to wait just more than 48 hours because, hey, the longer you wait, the longer the time the crystals have to grow, and therefore they're going to get bigger. And look, as you do this, you want to actually explain to the kids what was the science in the first place. So straight up, borax is easily dissolved in water, and it was very clear when you added those 4 teaspoons of borax into your hot water, it should have dissolved quite easily. Now, as the solution starts to cool down, it starts to become supersaturated, which is actually quite unstable. Now, what we mean by supersaturated, you've got a whole bunch of molecules waiting to come out of solution, and it certainly is much easier for this to happen in a cold environment. Now, as your water cooled down, less of the borax crystals could remain in the water, so they began to settle out onto the pipe cleaners, which, by the way, really act as a seeding crystal. Now, as more and more of the borax continues to settle out, you get larger and larger crystals, and the longer it takes to form a crystal, the larger the crystal will be. And it's the sort of thing that you see happen in crystal growing kits, when we make liquid nitrogen ice cream, or even like the crystals that you see inside caves that take a long time to grow, and it's certainly beautiful. Let's go on to experiment number 2. Now, Now, this is all about making Christmas cards, only this time it's going to be done with lemon juice. And you might have done this before doing some mystery writing, and that is exactly what this is about. It's the invisible ink experiment, and kids love it. So, what do you need? First up, you're going to need some lemon juice. You're going to need a bowl, some paper, one of those cotton tips, like, the ones that you shouldn't put in your ears, that admittedly kids certainly do. And you're going to need some pens and a spotlight or some form of heat like a hairdryer. Please don't use flame, you're just asking for trouble. So there you go. Lemon juice, bowl, paper, cotton tips and pens, spotlight and hairdryer. So now you know the materials. Let's get on to creating some lemon juice Christmas cards. Now, first up, you're going to need to get some lemon juice. So with an adult, cut that lemon in half and squeeze it out into your bowl. Now, with those cotton tips that you shouldn't put into your ears, you're going to use those to paint your lemon juice onto your Christmas card. Now, the idea is that you want it to dry. Now, if those people who aren't that patient, well, you may be able to help it out a little bit by putting it out in the sunlight or something like that. But if you're in winter conditions, you're going to have to, heat it up a little bit faster. So there's a couple ways around this. You could add a spotlight onto it, or you could use a hairdryer, and it will not only dry out the paper, but you'll start to see something happen. Now, what happens? The writing, it starts to get brown, and the longer you do it, the browner it becomes. It almost looks like it burns the paper. And then, that brings up the point. Don't keep going till the actual paper burns. You want to make sure you get the mystery writing out, and that's all you want. Now, you might be wondering, what is the science? What is the point of this? Well, it is a classic experiment, and it comes down to lemon juice is acidic, and it contains sugar as well. Now, the acid from the lemon juice affects the paper, effectively weakening the paper's structure. Now, adding heat to the paper causes, the paper to slightly burn. Not only just that, it's the sugar itself. It starts to form a caramel when it's heated, which, remember the sugar's in the lemon juice. It's in small quantities. It starts to produce a color, which you get to see on your paper. And hey, you get to give a Christmas card that has just a little bit of flair and a little bit of science in it as well. Now, the next experiment is incredibly easy to set up. All you need are red, green, and blue spotlights. And I know that you can get them from hardware stores around the place. You just have to look. If you can't, go to a craft store and get some cellophane and put them over some torches. Why? Because the kids are going to put on a puppet show, and this puppet show is going to be Christmassy because they're going to have some cardboard paper, and they're going to turn this into, like your little snowmen and Christmas trees and all the rest. But here's the deal. When you focus those three lights, the red, green, and blue lights, you will get them to merge into white, because all the colors of light mixed together make white. Now, if you have an object in the center of that focal point of the red, green, and blue light, you will throw colored shadows. And the kids will have a lot of fun creating a rainbow Christmas show for your guests. Now, if you want to make it a bit Christmassy, of course, you just use red and green, but why not do the entire spectrum? Kids will love it, and it's really easy to do. Now, you may want to give away a science experiment. So in this case, why don't you create some fizzy bombs? Now, you may be wondering, what is a fizzy bomb? Now, a fizzy bomb is exactly what it sounds like. It's a fizzing thing. It's a bubbly thing. And it's really, really easy to make. And it's out of household ingredients that are completely safe. So what you use: half a cup of bicarbonate soda. It's the same stuff that you've used to make volcanoes plenty of times, I'm sure. So get your bicarbonate soda, set it to one side. Get some vinegar. Now, when you put vinegar and bicarbonate soda together, they react, and that is the basis of this reaction. But firstly, with your vinegar, you're going to set it to one side. You're not using it till the end. So the actual stuff you're mixing together is the half cup of bicarbonate soda, and you're going to get some food coloring. So seeing it's Christmas time, get some green, get some red. Or maybe you want to go down the frozen line, maybe some white or blue. But I do know there are some listeners, including me, who are a little bit over the frozen because, my young daughter kept on playing that movie over and over and over again. Anyway, all right, so you got your colors and you got your bicarbonate soda. You may want to mix in a slight bit of water potentially soon. So just have that nearby, and you're going to have, that container that you're going to pack this stuff into that looks Christmassy. So here's the deal. You get your bicarb soda, put it into that container, and carefully mix in just a couple of drops of food coloring at a time until you get a desired color. You may not want to make it too strong because potentially maybe you don't want the kids to get all over in their clothes. Or maybe you can just tell them, go put some old clothes on and we'll make it as brightly coloured as we'd like to. Now, that mixture should be crumbly. It should be able to hold its shape when you press it with a small spoon. And if it doesn't, add a few drops of water that you have nearby and mix again and try and create that crumbly texture. Too dry, add water. Too wet, add bicarb soda, and just go back and forth till you get this crumbly sort of look. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to pack that mixture into your Christmas container, that candy cane or Christmas tree that you organise, and press it down with the back of your spoon, and so leave a little bit of room at the top so you can actually get your fingers to actually get the thing out soon enough. Now, to be able to get it out in the first place, it's worth letting it dry for at least an hour. It depends on how hot it is where you are, but at least an hour will certainly allow that mixture to start to get rid of its water and start to set. Now, what you do is you turn it upside down and just tap out your bicarb bricks, effectively your fizzy bombs, ready to go, and you give it away to the kids and tell them add it to vinegar and watch it just erupt. Now, they might be wondering what is the actual technical reaction that occurs. When you put vinegar and bicarbonate soda together, it forms carbonic acid and sodium acetate. Now, that carbonic acid is unstable, so it breaks down into water and carbon dioxide, which forms those bubbles that you see when the bicarbonate soda comes in contact with the vinegar in the first place. So that's the thing, it's actually a two-stage reaction, but certainly you have carbon dioxide release and the kids have a lot of fun. One of the things about science experiments is that they can be very, very colourful, and they're really popular. And this one is undoubtedly incredibly popular, so much so that it actually became quite viral on a video only recently on Facebook. So this one is Skittle Science, and if you haven't done the Skittle Science experiments or seen it on YouTube or Facebook, go type in Skittle Science. Trust me, you'll see it. And if you just type it into our website, you'll see a nice picture of what we're going to create. So what we do, get yourself, festive colours, get some reds and greens and all that sort of thing. You're going to get some Skittles with only the colours that work with the Christmas spirit, and you're going to want 3 of them. You're going to get a sugar cube, and you're going to get some, just some plain water and a flat white plate. Now, you might want to have a mess bucket and, cleaning materials nearby, and that's all you really need. So here we go. What you're going to do is you're going to fill that plate just a little bit with water. Just cover the base of your plate with water, and you're going to arrange your Skittles, your red and green Skittles, in a triangle near the center of the plate. Maybe allow like a centimeter or two to create like an equilateral triangle if we want to be exactly precise. The point is you've got a little bit of space in the middle of that triangle and a little bit of space between those Skittles in the first place. Now, what you do is you get the kids just to watch those Skittles for a while. The colours will start to come out and out and out and out until they form like a cross. Now, when those colours form a cross in the middle of the plate, what you do is you get one of the children to add a sugar cube right in the very centre, right in the middle of that cross, and get them to observe the results and get them to try to explain it. Now, this is an incredibly popular experiment, and it really covers a fundamental part of chemistry. The rules are chemicals always move from high concentration to lower concentration, or as sometimes I say to the young kids, it moves from more stuff to less stuff. Now, what we're actually talking about is a thing called a concentration gradient, and it can be found in everything from perfume vapors wafting through a room through to cordial spreading out in water. Now, when you first add the Skittles into your plate, they start to dissolve. That's where you see those colours going out into your solution. Now, they meet in the center because, well, it turns out the sugar in your Skittles is pretty much the same concentration regardless of whether it's a red Skittle or a green Skittle. And so once the food colors move out with the sugar, they touch and they form a boundary and they can't go past each other. You form this cross where it's not going to have much movement. Now, by the way, just as a heads up, kids always move your plate, by the way, so don't be surprised if you have to do this a second time. Anyway, so you got your cross color in the center of your plate. When you add the pure sugar in the center of that food color cross, the sugar cube also begins to dissolve. That's what it's going to do. Now, that creates a situation where most of the sugar is found in the exact center of the plate, whereas the least amount of sugar is on the area edge of the plate, which is pretty much basically pure water. Now, as the sugar cube dissolves, it pushes outwards into the rest of that solution, sending that coloured water outwards as well. And I tell you what, kids love it, and it's a bit of Christmas fun. And if you're wondering about what was the viral side of it, well, with adult help, try it with hot water. See what happens.
This is the Physics Ed Podcast.
One of the things that's really synonymous with Christmas is very much the snow, the ice, the sleds, the reindeer, everything that just says winter. So, let's do a super cool water experiment, and why we're going to make instant ice crystals. Now, I tell you what, it's a little bit touch and go. It's very, very difficult to have happen, so you're going to need some patience. Believe me, you really, really will. But it's worth it in the end. Now, what are you going to need? Really pure water. and a whole bunch of bottles. Now, you can buy the bottles from a supermarket, I guess, but if you've got some hanging around, certainly clean them out as much as you can, because it's got to be very pure water. In fact, if you want to get distilled water, do so. You want it as clean and pure as possible, where there's not many minerals in it whatsoever. You're going to need a bowl. You're going to need some freezer. And again, I'm going to say it again, lots of patience. You really, really need it. Now, what you're going to do, take the labels off the bottles of water before you start, and you're simply going to put them in the freezer and leave them undisturbed for several hours, if not overnight. Now, here's the thing. Once the bottles have cooled, you're going to gently remove them from the freezer. Now, the trick is getting the bottles of water before they actually freeze inside. Now, here's the thing. Most of your bottles will probably freeze. Let's be honest. That's exactly what a water bottle in a freezer does. However, you may have, if you gently had put the bottle into the freezer and it was purely clean, really, I'm talking to the nth degree, incredibly clean, you will have a situation where the water is at a, incredibly cold state, and that is actually quite unstable. It's what's called supercooled. And here's the deal. In a very smooth container with no dust inside whatsoever, water can stay at a liquid below 0 degrees Celsius. It's very, very strange. In fact, even the slightest air bubble or seeding crystal, like anything, will cause that liquid water to rapidly freeze. Now, if you've been lucky, you might be able to take the bottle out. It'll still have liquid inside that's incredibly cold, and you might be able to pour it out and create a stalagmite. You know, the pointy things that go towards, from the floor of a cave towards the roof, not the stalactites, the stalagmites. You can do this thing where you can pour out this super cool water where that agitation, that energy from you just moving that bottle slightly and pouring it out, the ice instantly freezes. It's really, really, really cool. Now, it's very bit different from freezing point depression. Now, what I mean by that is, when you add like a salt into water, that's when you change the freezing point in water itself by adding other chemicals. This is it's tough, and you might be able to do it. Now, linking with that frozen idea of making those ice crystals, why not just take that a little bit further and get the kids to make edible snow? Why not? Or at least something that looks like edible snow anyway. You're going to make some sherbet, and it's so easy to make. So you just need a couple of things from the supermarket. First up, you're going to need some citric acid. You can get that in the herb and spice aisle of your supermarket. You're going to need some bicarbonate soda. This is true. And you'll need some icing sugar, though I do know people overseas will call this powdered sugar. You just need, the stuff that looks like crushed up powder of sugar. That's what you need. And you need a cup and a spoon. That's all you need per child. Now, what you need to do is basically mix the right ratios together. It's simple as that. So here's the ratio. You're going to need 10 parts of that icing sugar, 1 part of citric acid, and 1 part of bicarbonate soda. However, if you feel like being a little bit mean, maybe you can get the kids to investigate which is the best flavoring. I mean, give them the 10 parts to 1 part to 1 part. That's certainly the way to go. Or maybe give it a little bit less sugar and a little bit more citric acid to make it sour. Or if you're really feeling like a Christmas Grinch, you could use a bit too much bicarbonate soda. And you watch their face, they go, it tastes like soap. And believe me, it does. Now, there is, of course, some science with this. And again, it's that same reaction of creating carbon dioxide by reacting vinegar and bicarbonate soda together. And yes, you do produce water as well. Now, by the way, as they're having it fizz slightly on their tongue when they eat their sherbet, make sure they get to mix it too. If they don't make it completely mixed through, it will taste terrible. You got to make sure you mix it right up. But as they eat it, it will feel slightly cold on their tongue. Now, what's going on is it's actually an endothermic reaction. Now, endothermic reactions draw heat in. That's what they do, as opposed to exothermic reactions, which release heat out. Now, why does it feel cold on your tongue when it's drawing heat in? Well, it's taking heat off your tongue to go into the vinegar and bicarbonate soda so that they can react. Now, as that happens, your tongue's going to feel slightly colder because it's losing heat energy, so it starts to feel cold. And that experiment is a lot of fun. Looks like powdered snow, and the kids love it. Now, perhaps you may want to decorate the Christmas tree you got in your house. And this is a really fun experiment which kids love. It tastes great. And it can even look great too. It all depends on how you go. What you're going to do is you're going to make some sugar crystal rock candy. Now, rock candy is a lot of fun and really, really tastes good. And you can make it quite Christmassy just by bending some lollipops into the shape of, a candy cane. It's pretty easy. So what you're going to need a lot of sugar. Trust me. to make sugar crystals, to make a whole bunch of rock candy, you will need a lot of sugar. Now, you're going to need a saucepan or a kettle or at least 500 milliliters of water. So, because you're going to be heating that water in the kettle or in the saucepan, adult help is important. Now, obviously you need somewhere for this rock candy to form, and that's where the lollipop comes in. You get the sticks and you bend them into the shape of a candy cane. Now, if you can't get that, look, a wooden kebab stick or a chopstick will do. It will form it. But hey, we're trying to make a decoration, so if you can find some lollipop things that will bend into that shape, that's awesome. Now, you're going to need some clothes pegs. That's just really, really handy. You'll need a glass or a cup or something like that. You'll need a metal spoon and a place to leave this experiment set up away from ants to settle for a long time, because you need time for these crystals to grow. Now, being Christmas time, of course, you're going to want some food coloring. Make them red. Make them green. Or if you don't want it to, just keep it completely plain. It's pure crystals, pure clear ones. That can be quite cool. So what you're going to do, you need, here we go. Here are your instructions. Get some adult help, number one. Number two, you're going to carefully heat the water in your saucepan. Add your food coloring at this point so it looks nice and red and nice and green, and you're going to stir in all that sugar. Just do it slowly though, and you're going to constantly stir the whole time while the sugar dissolves. You don't want to caramelize it, that's going too far. You just want the sugar so it can dissolve. Now here's the key, you are adding the sugar slowly. You want to keep doing it so that it can only just fit exactly the amount right of sugar whilst it's hot. You don't want to have any leftovers crystals. So as soon as you start to see that you can't dissolve anymore, then you're ready. Now what you're going to do is you're going to pour that saturated sugar solution carefully into that glass that you got. Now don't let any of those leftover crystals go into that glass as well. You just want the pure saturated sugar solution. Now, what you're going to do is with that chopstick, or if you happen to get that lollipop bent into the candy cane shape, it's time to grab it. Because what you're going to do is you're going to use those clothes pegs to suspend that kebab stick or that that lollipop stick into that sugar solution without the stick touching the sides of the glass or the bottom. And you're going to put that spot away where ants can't get to it. You may need to cover the experiment with a cloth or something and let it cool over several days. In fact, it may be worthwhile setting up several experiments to see, is the crystal formation different if you use different amounts of sugar in the water? Hey, why not? Let's do some variable testing. So while they're sitting there, you're going to need patience. It takes quite a few days. But if you have the kids going and checking out that stick that you got in that solution, you'll start to see what looks like bubbles initially, but then you'll start to see crystals form. And the kids absolutely love watching these things grow, and they really taste quite nice. Now, what's actually going on is that you've made a super saturated solution of sugar and water. Now, sugar crystals can only stay dissolved whilst the water's quite hot. Now, if you've got too much sugar in a hot water solution, once you cool it down, it's now very super saturated. The sugar wants to come out of solution. So once the water cools down completely, the sugar crystals start to collect and settle out onto that kebab stick, onto that chopstick that you've got in there, which effectively acts as a seeding crystal. More and more of that sugar starts to settle out of the solution once there is a seeding crystal to work with, and your crystals begin to grow. And just like with the other experiment earlier on, the longer it takes to form a crystal, the larger that crystal will be.
You're listening to the Physics Ed podcast. Why don't you book us for a science show or workshop in your school? We love seeing students get excited about science, and you will too. Go to fizzics-education.com.au and click on Schools for more info.
That was just some of the experiments you can be doing at home as we enter the Christmas season. So look, jump on the Physics Ed website. There are so many experiments. Seriously, there's over 150 experiments that you can be using. That was just some of them, which can certainly put a Christmas spirit into it. It's certainly cool. Now, coming up over the next few weeks, we are going to be revisiting some of the past episodes with some of our brilliant educators that we got to speak with. And in 2018, there are so many more interviews lined up. I'm very, very excited to bring them to you. We're just going to have a bit of a break in the process. So until then, have a fantastic Christmas, have an awesome New Year, and I'll catch you next week.
You've been listening to another Physics Ed podcast. We're excited about science. Subscribe to us on iTunes to download the next episode as soon as it's released. And don't forget, for hundreds of ideas, free experiments, our new Be Amazing book and more, go to fizzics-education.com.au. That's physics spelled Fizzics.